This has to be one of the most haunting and just baffling unsolved cases in American history. It's a story that kicks off with a horrific fire on Christmas Eve, but it quickly spirals into something else entirely. Something that suggests a much, much darker conspiracy.
And this right here is the question at the heart of the whole mystery. I mean, the official story says 5 children died in a house fire. But what if there's no evidence they were ever in that fire to begin with? That's where things get really strange. So, let's set the scene. It's Christmas Eve, 1945. We're in the little town of Fayetteville, West Virginia. And for one family, this holiday is about to turn into an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, just think about that. It was the first Christmas since the end of the war, a time that should have been all about peace and joy. But for the Sodder family, it was the start of a horror that would follow them for the rest of their lives.
The whole thing just happens so fast. It starts at 1 in the morning with this bizarre phone call to Jenny Sodder. Some woman on the line asks for a name she doesn't know, and then there's this weird, creepy laugh. 30 minutes later, a loud bang on the roof, and then smoke. The family scrambles. They manage to get 4 of their kids out, but 5 are still trapped upstairs. And by 2:30 a.m., in just 45 minutes, the entire house is gone, reduced to nothing but smoldering ash.
Okay, so a tragic fire, right? That's one thing. But the stuff surrounding it, it just doesn't make any sense. The official story of an accident starts to fall apart pretty quickly when you look at all the strange things that happened that night.
Put yourself in George Sodder's shoes for a second. The house is burning, and he runs to get his ladder to save his kids. But it's gone. It's always in the same spot, but tonight it's just vanished. So then, he runs to his 2 work trucks, thinking he can pull them up to the window. Both of them were working perfectly just hours ago. Now, they're completely dead. Won't start. His last chance is the rain barrel, but the water's frozen solid. I mean, every single thing that could have been used for a rescue was useless. Is that just a string of terrible coincidences? Or does it feel like something way more deliberate?
And this right here, brings us to the biggest question in this entire case. The one thing that makes the official story completely crumble. Where are the children?
Well, the simple answer is it can't. It just doesn't work that way. And this is the question the Sodder family started asking from day one. A house fire, even a really hot one, isn't capable of what the authorities claimed happened.
So here's the kicker. The next morning, when the fire chief is sifting through what's left of the house, he finds nothing. And I mean nothing. Not a single bone fragment, not a tooth, not one piece of physical evidence to suggest 5 children had died there. The official line was that the fire was so intense it just vaporized them. But scientifically, that's basically impossible.
And this really breaks down the problem. On one side, you have a professional crematorium that takes temperatures of 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, burning for over 2 hours to cremate a body. And even then, it leaves behind bone fragments. On the other side, you have the Sodder house fire, which burned out in just 45 minutes. There's just no way it could have completely erased 5 bodies without leaving a single trace. It doesn't add up.
So if the kids didn't die in the fire, that leaves what? Well, only one other possibility, really, that they were taken. And as the Sodders started digging, this whole web of clues started to appear, and every single one pointed towards foul play.
So you have to ask why. Why would someone target the Sodders? Well, George was an Italian immigrant himself, and he was very, very outspoken against Mussolini's fascist government. And in a town with a big Italian community, that kind of talk made him some serious enemies. People have even suggested a connection to the Sicilian Mafia. Was this whole thing some kind of twisted political revenge?
How chilling is that? A guy shows up at the house, supposedly looking for work, points to the fuse box, and makes this thinly veiled threat. And what was the official cause of the fire? Faulty wiring. The very same wiring George had just had completely redone and inspected. It just feels a little too convenient, doesn't it?
And the evidence just kept piling up. First, the phone line. A repairman finds it wasn't burned through. It had been cleanly cut, way up the pole. Then a witness comes forward and says she saw a car on the road while the house was burning, and swears she saw the 5 Sodder children looking out from the back seat. And then, maybe strangest of all, a waitress at a hotel 50 miles away says she served breakfast to the kids the very next morning, and they were with a group of suspicious-looking adults of Italian descent.
For 20 years, the case just went cold. The Sodders never ever gave up hope, but there were no new leads. And then, 22 years after that horrible night, something arrived in the mail that was so strange, so tantalizing, it just blew the whole mystery wide open again.
Yeah, just completely out of the blue, a letter shows up. It's postmarked from Kentucky, but there's no return address.
Inside is this photo of a young man, probably in his late 20s, and the resemblance to their son Louis, who was 9 when he disappeared, is, well, it's uncanny. On the back is this really cryptic message. To the family, it must have felt like proof that at least one of their children was still alive.
And if you think it can't get any weirder, it does. This is where the story takes a final, really dark twist. The family, desperate for any answers, hires a private detective to go to Kentucky and find out where this letter came from. The investigator went, and then he just vanished. He was never heard from again.
You know, tragically, George and Jenny Sodder both went to their graves without ever finding out what happened to their children. But their relentless search for the truth is the reason this case has never been forgotten. Can you imagine? This billboard became a local landmark. It was this heartbreaking monument to a family's undying hope and a constant public reminder of the 5 children who were just gone. They poured their life savings into this, following every single lead. They never gave up.
So, after all this time, we're left with 2 totally different realities. On one hand, you have the accident theory, a tragic fire filled with bizarre coincidences and a scientifically baffling lack of remains. And on the other hand, you have the abduction theory, a carefully planned kidnapping disguised by arson, all because of a political vendetta. In that theory, the lack of remains isn't a strange anomaly. It's the entire point. They weren't there.
The ashes of the Sodder home are long gone, but the questions are still burning just as brightly. We're left to wonder what really happened on that Christmas Eve nightmare. Were 5 children stolen away in the dead of night, forced to live out their lives under new names, forever cut off from the family that never, ever stopped looking for them?